long essay about the upsetting tendency that my parents and my friends have of dying. It's called Not in Front of the Children. My mother died neatly. She left on December 28, 1988, without lengthy discussion or even casual chat about what was to come. Unless I counted 15 years of her reminding me that she'd stashed her pearls in the hamper and her good diamond earrings, the ones I never found, in a bottle of vitamin C. She died without final goodbye of a heart attack brought on by days of huffing the bronchodilator that opened her airways and allowed her to breathe. She died after 30 years of chronic asthma, after so many trips to the emergency room that she'd lost the will to restart the mega doses of steroids that eased her breathing, but came with awful side effects. She died in Florida. I was 40. She was 70. She died without me. My father reported each of her hospitalizations when I called from California, but always sotto voce, as if they were a shameful secret. My mother preferred to talk about other things. Tell me something happy, she'd say. Talk about you. She liked news of my friends, of remodeling, a vacation my husband Jerry and I were planning, something delicious I'd eaten or beautiful I'd bought. I'd lived in San Francisco since college, too far from Boca Raton to drive her to the hospital, pick up her prescriptions, or watch her supper. That's what my father did. Couples signed the contract the day they married to take each other in sickness and in health. My mother's thin, breathless voice on the phone saddened me. Each time we spoke, I resolved again to visit more often, to be of more help. But when we hung up, the wheezing stopped and my focus shifted away. My older brother called at a civilized mid-afternoon hour to tell me that she had died. Even in death, she remained too considerate to disturb my sleep. My husband's and my budget easily absorbed the unexpected plane fares. Our biggest problem was canceling our New Year's Eve party, contacting pre-internet the 75 friends we invited to come. Those were the good times with Jerry. We'd been married for 3 years, and although he was 16 and a half years my senior, he was a youthful, vibrant 56, working in his family's business and acting in plays. I toiled innocently on my first novel, Rejection Still Years Away. I'd had the first of 3 miscarriages, but hadn't closed that book either. My girlfriends and I still dressed for parties, lounged in each other's living rooms in heels and little outfits that left a surprise of sequins in the couch. By the time we landed in Florida, my brother and father had already completed the arrangements. At the funeral home the next day, I stood in a knot of women. I didn't even know she was sick. She always looked so beautiful, a neighbor told me. She stayed inside, a closer friend whispered to me. She didn't want anyone to see her not looking good. Out of the corner of my eye, I watched my father and brother talking to a black-suited man, his hands clasped in the exaggerated propriety of a funeral professional. "Where are you going?" I rushed them as they started to follow him away. "We have to identify the body." My father's words broke, and he cried, a constipated, gulping mule. "It's a legal thing, before they close the coffin." Grief shredded my brother's voice to wheezing, as if he'd already taken on my mother's asthma. "I'll come too." I stepped so determinedly I walked out of one of my flats. "No!" My father's arm shot out. "That's not the way you want to remember her." His odd, strangled crying started again. My skin stung where he blocked me. His broad, densely furred arms were the only part of him that never aged. I stood in place, moved only to slip my shoe back on as they followed the undertaker away. Less than a day back with my father, and I'd reverted to the cowed 17-year-old I'd been when I left home. My parents' senior community, accustomed to the constant thinning of its numbers, responded swiftly to my mother's passing. An industrial-sized coffee maker appeared on our doorstep the next morning, and by the time we returned from the cemetery, the kitchen was filled with women, arranging smoked fish on the platters my mother used for dessert, rugelach in a salad bowl, and without precedent, hanging her dish towels on the oven door. In the next few days, casseroles appeared with notes to my father. "Bernie, my heart goes out to you. Let me know if you want to talk. Ruth. And dear Mr. Ferber, we have never spoken, but I've seen you at the clubhouse playing bridge. I lost my husband last year. Perhaps we can be of consolation to each other. Sincerely, Miriam Sepkus, Unit 2, Phase 3. Thank you.